Sarah watched the rain fall over the rooftops of Charleston, South Carolina. Droplets slid down her bedroom window like silent tears, mirroring exactly what she felt inside. She was 32 years old, had been married to David for 7 years, and her life was a carefully constructed lie. The lie had started 15 years ago, during a sweltering summer when her cousin Emily came to spend vacation at the family house. Emily was 17 at the time, just like Sarah, and she arrived with that radiant smile that lit up any room. Her honey blonde hair shone under the southern sun, and her blue eyes carried an infectious joy. Sarah realized in that first hug that something inside her was transforming, but she didn't have the courage to name that feeling. "Sarah, you okay?" David's voice brought her back to the present. He stood in the doorway, tie loosened after another long day working as a civil engineer. "Yeah, just tired," Sarah responded, forcing a smile. This was her standard answer for everything, the armor that protected her from having to explain the emptiness she felt. David approached and kissed her forehead with mechanical affection. "I'm gonna eat dinner in the living room. There's a game on tonight," he said, and left without waiting for a response. Sarah took a deep breath. Her husband was a good man, hard-working, respectful. But there was no passion between them. There never had been. The marriage had been a practical choice, a way to please the family and follow the expected script for a woman her age. Sarah's phone buzzed. It was a message from Emily. "Cuz, I miss you. I'm coming back to Charleston next week. Got the job transfer. We'll see each other more." Sarah's heart raced. Emily had moved to New York 5 years ago to work as an art curator, and visits had become rare. During all those years, Sarah had maintained constant contact through messages and video calls, always with the excuse that they were very close cousins. No one imagined that each conversation fed a secret love she'd been keeping since that distant summer. Sarah typed a response. "That's wonderful news. The house is open for you." But what she really wanted to write was, "You have no idea how long I've been waiting for this moment." That night, Sarah barely slept. She tossed and turned in bed next to David, who snored lightly, oblivious to the storm forming inside her. Through the cracked window, the scent of rain mixed with the aroma of magnolia flowers from the garden brought back memories of that summer 15 years ago. She remembered every detail. Emily and she spent their days exploring Charleston's historic streets, visiting antebellum houses, and talking about dreams and plans for the future. One afternoon, during a walk to a beach outside the city, Emily had slipped on wet sand. Sarah had grabbed her by the arms, and for an endless moment, their eyes met. The world seemed to stop. Sarah felt an electric current run through her body, a desire so intense to kiss her that she had to pull away quickly. "Thanks for saving me," Emily had said, laughing in that adorable way that made her cheeks flush. "Always," Sarah replied. And that word carried a weight Emily would never understand. In the days that followed, Sarah realized she was in love. But how could she express it? They were cousins. The family was traditional and Baptist. And the world they lived in wasn't kind to loves that deviated from the norm. So she did what seemed safest, buried her feelings deep in her heart, and decided to live a normal life. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters. Let's discover together what happens when Sarah finally reunites with Emily. Sarah met David 2 years later. He was a friend of a mutual cousin and started courting her with flowers and dinners. She accepted because it was what everyone expected. The wedding came naturally, celebrated at St. Michael's Episcopal Church, with the whole family gathered. Emily was there, beautiful in her navy blue dress, applauding along with the others. Sarah almost broke down seeing her, but maintained her radiant bride smile. During the 7 years of marriage, Sarah built a life that, seen from outside, seemed perfect. She worked as a high school English teacher, had a comfortable house, attended family gatherings. But inside, she felt like an actress playing a role that wasn't hers. Each kiss with David felt like a betrayal to herself. Each night beside him was a painful reminder that she was living someone else's life. Emily, meanwhile, had followed her dreams. She graduated in art history, moved to the city, opened her own gallery. Through social media, Sarah followed each achievement with a mix of pride and melancholy. Emily posted photos of innovative exhibitions, international trips, dinners with friends. She seemed happy and fulfilled, living the authentic life Sarah hadn't had the courage to seek. There was a period, 3 years ago, when Emily posted photos with a blonde woman named Rachel. They appeared together at various moments, always smiling. Sarah felt overwhelming jealousy, but also a strange sense of relief. Emily was a lesbian, or at least bisexual. This meant the feeling Sarah harbored wasn't completely impossible by nature, just by circumstances. That relationship didn't last long, and Sarah found herself secretly relieved when photos with Rachel stopped appearing. The day after Emily's message, Sarah woke determined to make changes. She didn't know what yet, but something needed to change. During breakfast, David commented about a new construction project in a neighboring city that could last months. "Maybe I'll need to stay there during the week," he said, spreading butter on toast. "It'd be more practical." "I understand," Sarah responded, and part of her felt relief at the prospect of having more time alone. David looked at her with an expression Sarah couldn't decipher. "Sarah, we need to talk. Things between us haven't been good for a long time." Sarah's heart jumped. "What do you mean?" "I know you don't love me," David said with sincere sadness in his eyes. "Never have. Not the way a couple should love each other. I tried to believe it would change with time. But 7 years have passed, and we continue like two strangers sharing a house." Sarah didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to deny it, maintain the charade, but another part, tired of so many years of lies, remained silent. "I've met someone," David continued. "At work, Fernanda. Nothing's happened between us, but I realized I feel things for her that I've never felt at home, and that made me realize it's not fair to either of us to continue like this." David's words were liberating and frightening at the same time. Sarah felt tears well up, but they weren't tears of sadness over losing the marriage. They were tears of relief and fear of the unknown opening before her. "I understand," Sarah finally said. "You're right. It's not fair." They talked for hours that Saturday morning. David was surprisingly understanding and kind. They agreed to separate amicably, divide assets fairly, and maintain mutual respect. There were no fights or accusations, just honest recognition that the marriage had been a mistake from the start. "You deserve to be happy, Sarah. Truly happy," David said as he left through the door with a suitcase of clothes. "I hope you find that." When the door closed, Sarah sat on the living room couch and cried. Not for the end of the marriage, but for the waste of 7 years living a lie. She was 32 years old and felt like she was only beginning to live for the first time. News of the separation spread quickly through the family. Sarah's mother called, horrified, wanting to know what had happened. "Y'all seemed so good. What went wrong?" Sarah explained as simply as possible. They weren't compatible, and it was better to go separate ways. Some family members supported her, others criticized. But Sarah was determined not to go back. Emily was one of the first to call when she found out. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. How are you doing? Do you need anything?" "I'm okay, Em. Actually, I'm at peace with it," Sarah responded. And it was true. "I'm glad you're strong. When I get there, we'll go out, talk, catch up. You're not alone," Emily said with that sweetness that made Sarah's heart melt. Sarah spent the following days organizing the house, removing David's belongings and reconfiguring the spaces. It was like she was rebuilding not just the house, but her own identity. She bought new plants, moved furniture around, painted a living room wall a shade of sage green she'd always wanted but David thought was too bold. A week later, at Charleston International Airport, Sarah waited nervously for Emily's arrival. The flight was delayed 40 minutes, and each minute felt like an eternity. When she finally saw Emily coming out of the baggage claim area, pulling a suitcase and searching with her eyes, Sarah felt the world slow down. Emily was even more beautiful. Her hair longer, naturally wavy, framing a face that had matured but maintained that special glow. She wore dark jeans and a simple white blouse, and to Sarah, she looked like the most stunning person in the airport. "Sarah!" Emily ran and hugged her tightly. Her perfume, a mix of flowers and something citrusy, enveloped Sarah like a living memory of that summer 15 years ago. "Emily, I've missed you so much," Sarah murmured, allowing herself to stay in that embrace a few seconds longer than would be appropriate. On the way back to Charleston, they talked nonstop. Emily told her about the challenges of starting her own business, the interesting projects she'd developed, the reasons she decided to return to the South. New York is incredible, but I realized I want to be close to family, to my roots. Here I have space to breathe, to be myself. Sarah listened attentively, driving along the winding highway that cut through the low country. The afternoon sun painted the sky in orange and pink tones, creating an almost magical atmosphere. And you? How are you dealing with everything? Emily asked, lightly touching Sarah's arm in a gesture of support. It's been liberating, actually, Sarah admitted. I realized I spent a lot of time living the life others expected of me, not the one I really wanted. I understand completely, Emily said with a sigh. I've been through that too. Sarah wanted to ask more, but didn't have the courage. Not yet. The silence that followed was comfortable, filled with the sound of soft music on the radio and the hum of the engine. When they arrived in Charleston, night had already fallen. The cobblestone streets gleamed under the light of old-fashioned street lamps, and the historic city had that fairy tale air that always enchanted. Sarah had prepared the guest room for Emily, but part of her fantasized about having her closer. The house is different, Emily observed upon entering. More you know? More colorful, more alive. I'm trying to make it really mine, Sarah explained, showing the changes she'd made. They had dinner together in the kitchen, preparing a simple recipe of shrimp and grits, collard greens and cornbread. The conversation flowed naturally, interspersed with laughter and shared memories. Sarah caught herself observing every gesture of Emily's, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about something she loved, the way she bit her lip when she was thinking. You know, Sarah, Emily said while they washed dishes together, I've always admired your strength. You always seemed to know who you were and what you wanted. Sarah almost laughed at the irony, but only said, It's not always like that, Em. Sometimes it takes us time to really know ourselves. After dinner, they sat on the porch, where they could see the lights of the city and stars shining in the clear southern sky. The air was fresh and perfumed with jasmine from the garden. I'm happy to be here, Emily said softly, and that you're starting this new phase. You deserve to be happy, Sarah. You deserve it too, Em, Sarah responded, and wanted to say so much more, but the words stuck in her throat. When they finally said goodnight, Sarah lay in her bed and stared at the ceiling. Emily was on the other side of the wall, so close, yet so distant. The 15 years of waiting seemed to weigh on her chest. How much longer could she keep this secret? And more importantly, should she keep it? Emily's first days in Charleston were intense and comforting. She'd rented a small apartment in the historic district, but spent most of her time at Sarah's house, planning the opening of her gallery branch in the city. Sarah returned to classes at school, but her afternoons and weekends now had a new brightness. On a rainy Thursday, Sarah came home carrying stacks of essays to grade. She found Emily in the living room, surrounded by plans for a new cultural space she'd been hired to curate. Look at this, Czar, Emily called, using the affectionate nickname only she used. I'm thinking of creating an indoor garden here, something that integrates historic architecture with modern elements. What do you think? Sarah approached, analyzing the detailed drawings. It's beautiful, Em. You have an incredible talent for uniting old and new. It's like you respect history but aren't afraid to innovate. Emily smiled, her blue eyes reflecting satisfaction at the compliment. I learned that we don't need to erase the past to build the future. We can honor where we came from while moving forward. Those words resonated deeply with Sarah. Could she apply that philosophy to her own life? Honor her family history without being bound to expectations that didn't make her happy? Want to go to the old exchange building tomorrow? Emily asked casually. I'm studying historical details to incorporate into the project. It'd be nice to have your company. Of course, Sarah responded, trying to control the enthusiasm in her voice. Any moment with Emily was precious. The next Friday, they climbed the historic streets to the building. It was mid-afternoon, and the sun was still strong, making the facades of colonial houses shine in shades of pastel pink, yellow, and blue. Tourists photographed every corner, but Sarah and Emily knew quieter paths, shortcuts only locals knew. I forgot how special it is to live here, Emily commented, stopping to admire the view of the harbor that stretched below. In New York, everything's so fast-paced. Here, it's like time has a different rhythm. It's true, Sarah agreed. Sometimes I think people here live between centuries. We walk on the same cobblestones that people from the 1700s walked on. Inside the building, the temperature was cooler. The walls decorated with period artifacts reflected candlelight, creating an atmosphere of reverence and beauty. Emily examined every detail with professional eyes, taking notes in a small notebook. Sarah watched her discreetly, admiring her concentration and passion for work. "You're watching me," Emily said suddenly, without taking her eyes off the ceiling. Sarah blushed. "Sorry, it's beautiful seeing you so involved in what you do." Emily finally looked at her, and there was something different in her gaze. A softness, a vulnerability Sarah hadn't seen before. "Thanks for being here with me, Sar. It means a lot." They spent another hour in the building before going back down to the center. They stopped at a traditional bakery for coffee and biscuits, still warm from the oven. The owner, Ms. Martha, had known Sarah since childhood. "Sarah, sweetie, and who's this beautiful girl with you?" Ms. Martha asked with a wide smile. "It's my cousin Emily. She just moved to the city," Sarah explained. "How wonderful. 2 beautiful girls like this, single. Won't take long to find good matches here," Ms. Martha said with that well-intentioned but invasive way typical of small southern communities. Sarah and Emily exchanged a look and laughed. "We're not looking, Ms. Martha," Emily responded diplomatically. "We're focused on work. But love always comes when you least expect it," the elderly lady insisted, before returning to the counter. When they left the bakery, Emily sighed. "That's why I needed to leave when I was younger. Everyone wants to know about your life, give opinions, arrange marriages. And now? Can you handle it better?" Sarah asked. "Now I know who I am, and don't let others' opinions define me," Emily responded with a firmness Sarah envied. "I learned that the hard way." Sarah wanted to ask more, understand what Emily meant by the hard way, but at that moment her phone rang. It was her mother. "Sarah, dear, come to Sunday dinner. The whole family misses you, and we heard Emily's in town. Bring her too." Sarah sighed. Sunday family dinners were tradition, and since the separation she'd been avoiding them, but she knew she couldn't run forever. "Okay, Mom, we'll be there," Sarah agreed. If you're following Sarah and Emily's journey, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. The story's just beginning. Sunday arrived with radiant sunshine. Sarah was nervous. Family gatherings always brought indiscreet questions, especially now that she was separated. Emily, on the other hand, seemed excited. Does Uncle Robert still tell those endless stories? Does Aunt Helen still make that amazing pecan pie? Emily asked while getting ready. Sarah watched Emily choose an outfit, trying on a green blouse that brought out her eyes, and then changing to a yellow one that left her shoulders bare. Every movement was delicious torture for Sarah, who tried to disguise her admiring gaze. "You look beautiful in anything," Sarah said without thinking, and immediately regretted it seeing Emily stop and look at her curiously. "Thanks, Sar," Emily responded with a sweet smile. "You look beautiful too. That blue dress brings out your brown eyes." Lunch at Sarah's parents' house was exactly as she expected, the table abundant with traditional Southern food: fried chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, cornbread, sweet tea. Aunts, uncles, cousins piled into the living room, talking loudly and laughing. "Sarah! Emily!" Sarah's mother, Mrs. Linda, hugged both effusively. "What a joy to have y'all here." Uncle Robert really started telling long stories about old times. Aunt Helen brought her famous dessert. Cousins asked about Emily's work in New York and made sympathetic comments about Sarah's separation. "Don't worry, Sarah," said Cousin Claire. "You'll find someone better. You're young, beautiful, smart." Sarah forced a smile. Why did everyone assume she wanted to find someone? Why did a woman's happiness always have to be tied to having a partner? It was Emily who changed the conversation's direction. Sarah's building an incredible life for herself. She's renovating the house, dedicated to work, taking care of herself. That's admirable. Sarah looked at Emily with gratitude. She always knew exactly what to say. After lunch, Sarah and Emily offered to wash dishes. In the kitchen, Away from the family's curious gazes, Sarah finally relaxed. "Thanks for saying that," Sarah thanked while soaping plates. "I only said the truth," Emily responded, drying glasses carefully. "You don't need anyone to be complete, Sar." "You already are complete." Sarah stopped what she was doing and looked directly at Emily. There was so much she wanted to say, but words seemed inadequate. How to express 15 years of kept love? How to explain that Emily was the reason she could never truly love David? Sarah began, but was interrupted by Cousin Claire entering the kitchen. "Girls, come on, we're playing cards on the porch." The moment passed, but something had changed. Sarah saw in Emily's eyes an unasked question, a curiosity about what she was going to say. In the following weeks, Sarah and Emily established a comfortable routine. Emily spent days working in her temporary office, meeting clients and developing projects. Sarah taught classes, graded papers, and prepared teaching materials, but the evenings were theirs. They cooked together, watched movies, talked about everything. Emily told her about the relationship with Rachel, the woman from the photos Sarah had seen. "It was intense but brief," Emily explained one night, while drinking wine on the porch. "Rachel was wonderful, but I realized I was looking for something she couldn't give me. Not her fault, but because I didn't know what I was looking for myself." "And now you know?" Sarah asked, heart racing. Emily stayed silent for a moment, looking at the stars. "I'm starting to understand. Sometimes what we're looking for was always close, but we didn't have the courage to see." Sarah wanted to believe Emily was talking about her, but fear of misinterpreting paralyzed her. On a Friday, Emily proposed something different. "Let's take a weekend trip. I know a beautiful bed and breakfast in Savannah. We need to relax, get out of the routine a bit." Sarah accepted without hesitation. Actually, the idea of spending an entire weekend with Emily, away from Charleston and family gazes, was exciting and terrifying at the same time. Savannah was an even smaller city than Charleston, equally historic and charming. The inn Emily had chosen was in a restored antebellum house, with lush gardens and breathtaking views of the squares. "I booked 2 rooms," Emily said at check-in, and Sarah didn't know whether to feel relieved or disappointed. They spent Saturday exploring the city. They visited Forsyth Park, strolled through the historic district, had lunch at a charming restaurant with regional food. It was like they were in a bubble, separated from the real world and all the complications it brought. That evening, after a quiet dinner at the inn, they sat in the garden. The full moon illuminated everything with soft silver light. The sound of cicadas and the scent of flowers created an almost unreal atmosphere. "Sar, can I ask you something?" Emily said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Of course. Why did you marry David? I always felt that it wasn't what you really wanted." Sarah felt her heart jump. This was the question she feared and at the same time hoped for. "I got married because I thought it was the right thing to do, because everyone expected it, because I was afraid to admit what I really wanted." "And what did you really want?" Emily asked softly, turning to look at her directly. Sarah faced that blue gaze that had haunted her for 15 years. It was now or never, but fear was still bigger than courage. "I wanted to be truly happy. Live authentically, no matter what others thought. And now? Are you managing?" Emily asked, and there was something in her voice that seemed hopeful. "I'm trying," Sarah responded. "I'm learning to be honest with myself, even if it's scary." Emily took Sarah's hand, a simple gesture but one that sent waves of electricity up Sarah's arm. "I'm learning that too, and you know what I've discovered? That honesty can be liberating." They stayed like that, hands intertwined, looking at the moon and feeling the weight and lightness of that moment. Sarah wanted to pull Emily close, confess everything, but it still wasn't time. But maybe, just maybe, that moment would come soon. When they returned to Charleston Sunday afternoon, something had changed between them. A new intimacy, a nonverbal understanding that went beyond words. Sarah began to believe that her feelings might not be as one-sided as she thought. May arrived bringing milder temperatures and a new rhythm to Sarah and Emily's lives. Emily's gallery was officially open, with a discreet but elegant sign on the door, ER Art Gallery, Emily Richards. Sarah had organized a small opening celebration, inviting friends and some family members. "I can't believe I'm really doing this here in Charleston," Emily said, while arranging the last details of the gallery on opening morning. "I always thought my place was in big cities." "Sometimes our true place is where our heart is," Sarah responded, and realized too late the weight of those words. Emily stopped what she was doing and looked at Sarah with an intense expression. "And where is your heart, Sar?" Before Sarah could respond, the first guests arrived, and the moment was lost. But that question kept echoing in Sarah's head during the whole celebration. The party was a success. Emily presented some of the projects she was developing, talked with potential clients, and received many compliments for her work. Sarah watched her from afar, proud and at the same time melancholic. Emily shone there, in her element, passionate about what she did, and Sarah was more and more in love with her. Comment below if you're enjoying this story and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any details. That evening, after everyone had left and they cleaned the gallery together, Emily suggested going to an overlook on the outskirts of the city. "I want to really celebrate, just the two of us," she said. The overlook was on top of a hill, accessible by a narrow dirt road. Emily drove her car carefully, avoiding holes and rocks. When they arrived, the entire city stretched below them, illuminated by thousands of lights that looked like fallen stars. "It's beautiful," Emily murmured, getting out of the car and walking to the edge of the overlook. Sarah followed her, maintaining a safe distance, but wanting to be closer. "You know, Sar, there's something I need to tell you," Emily began, without taking her eyes off the landscape. "About why I really came back to Charleston." Sarah's heart raced. "You can tell me anything, Em. I said I wanted to be close to family, to roots, and that's true. But it's not the whole truth." Emily finally turned to face her. "I came back because I couldn't stay away from you anymore." Sarah felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "What?" "When I found out about your separation, it was like a door opened. During all these years, I've kept a secret. I thought I could forget, that I'd find someone else, but I never could, because my heart always belonged to you." Tears started rolling down Sarah's face. 15 years of waiting, of kept pain, of secret love, and there was Emily, saying exactly what Sarah had always dreamed of hearing. "Emily, I don't know what to say," Sarah murmured, her voice choked. "You don't need to say anything," Emily said, taking a step toward her. "But I need you to know that I understand if you don't feel the same. We're cousins. The family might not accept it. And you just got out of a marriage. I don't want to pressure you. I just couldn't keep this in anymore." "Not feel the same?" Sarah finally found her voice. "Emily, I've waited 15 years for you. 15 years keeping this love secret. Thinking I was alone in this feeling. I married David trying to forget you. But I never could. Every moment of these years was marked by your absence." Emily brought her hands to her face, crying. 15 years? Since that summer?" "Since that summer," Sarah confirmed, approaching. "Since the day I caught you at the beach and our eyes met. From that moment I knew. But I was so afraid." "Me too," Emily confessed. "I felt it too, but I thought you only saw me as a cousin, as a friend. When you married David, I thought I'd imagined everything." They were so close now that Sarah could feel Emily's breath. The moon illuminated their faces, and the world seemed to have stopped turning. "Can we do this? Can we be this?" Sarah asked, vulnerable. "We can be whatever we want," Emily responded. "We've already wasted 15 years on fear. I don't want to waste another moment." And then, finally, after 15 years of waiting, Sarah kissed Emily. It was a soft kiss, loaded with emotion, with years of repressed desire, with tears and smiles. When they separated, both were laughing and crying at the same time. "Finally," Emily murmured, resting her forehead against Sarah's. "Finally." They stayed there for hours, talking, kissing, sharing all the moments when they felt something, but didn't have the courage to express it. Emily told how she almost confessed 3 times, once at Sarah's wedding, another during a visit 2 years ago, and the last in a text message she ended up deleting before sending. Sarah, in turn, confessed about the jealousy she felt of Rachel, about the nights she cried for not being able to have Emily, about how every relationship she considered over the years failed before even starting because no one was her. "We're cousins," Sarah said at some point. "How will we deal with the family?" "We're second cousins. It's not technically incest," Emily responded pragmatically. "And even if it were, the heart doesn't understand family rules. We'll have to face people's judgment, but we'll face it together. Together," Sarah repeated, and the word never sounded so beautiful. They decided to go slow, not announce anything to the family yet. First, they needed to explore this new reality, adjust to the idea of finally being honest about their feelings, but it was hard to hide the happiness radiating from both. In the following days, Sarah floated. Her students noticed she was more animated, more patient. Work colleagues commented that she seemed radiant, and it was true. For the first time in 15 years, Sarah felt she was living her life for real. Emily was also transformed. Her work flowed with more creativity, her meetings with clients were more productive. It was like an energy that had been blocked for years had finally been released. They were careful in public, keeping displays of affection discreet. But in private, at Sarah's house or Emily's apartment, they were just two women in love discovering each other. "You know what's funny?" Emily said one night, while they were lying on Sarah's couch watching a movie. "We've known each other for so long, but there's so much new to discover about each other." "Like what?" Sarah asked, stroking Emily's hair that rested on her lap. "Like the fact that you snore lightly when you're very tired," Emily joked. "Or that you have a specific way of biting your lip when you're concentrated, or that your eyes get even darker when you're emotional." Sarah laughed. "And I've discovered that you sing in the shower, always old songs, that you have an adorable way of wrinkling your nose when you don't agree with something, and that your smile can light up any room." "We're being very cheesy," Emily commented, but was smiling. "We have 15 years to make up for," Sarah responded. "We can be cheesy." A month after the confession at the Overlook, they decided it was time to tell the family. They'd start with the more open people, testing the waters before a general revelation. Sarah decided to tell her younger sister first, Rebecca, who had always been more liberal and understanding. They arranged coffee at a discreet cafe. "Becca, I need to tell you something important," Sarah began, nervous. Rebecca, a 28-year-old who worked as a nurse, looked at her with concern. "Is everything okay? Are you sick?" "No, it's nothing like that. It's about Emily." "What about Emily?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Emily and I are together, romantically. We love each other. We always have." Rebecca stayed silent for a few seconds, processing the information. Then, to Sarah's surprise, she smiled. "It's about time y'all realized that." "You knew." "I suspected," Rebecca admitted. "The way y'all looked at each other, I always knew there was something more. I'm happy y'all finally have the courage to own it." "But we're cousins," Sarah said, still testing reactions. "Distant cousins," Rebecca corrected. "And even if you were close, love is love, Sar. Y'all aren't hurting anyone.